Now, in terms of this presentation, it has three purposes. The first is the presentation has the same title. I mean, this is Cruise Lady, right? So there's an ulterior motive. It has to do with cruises, of course. But Michael Ballum and I are taking a group next May called In the Footsteps of Peter and Paul. And we start in Venice, and most of it's in Turkey, Greece, and Italy. So we go to the sites where Paul was primarily, where Peter died, although I didn't tell Diane this, but in Ephesus we're also going to talk about John the Revelator a little bit. And then, because while we're in the area, you've got to go to Spain. So anyway, we end up in Barcelona. But I'm actually going to advertise for one of my colleagues. My dean, Brent Topp, is doing a land tour to Turkey next year. And if it goes well, Devin, I want Diane to put my name in the hopper for that one.
I'll put a good word.
After Jerusalem and the Holy Land, Turkey is my absolute favorite place. How many of you have been to Turkey? Turkey has the best Greek ruins in the world. If you want to go see Greek ruins, you go to Turkey, not Greece. It has the second best preserved Roman city in the world, Ephesus. I have, among many side interests, I'm really interested in Byzantine history, which is the Christian Roman Eastern Empire after the Western Empire falls. I'm interested in Turkish history. All of this stuff is in Turkey. When you go to Turkey, you can see 5 different cultures and 2,000 years of history, including a lot of early Christian stuff. Because most of Paul's journeys were in Turkey, some in Greece. That's where John the Revelator was at the end of his life, etc. So that brings us to the third reason for this presentation. So the first is shameless advertising of our cruise next May. Second is slightly altruistic, pumping my colleague and boss's tour, Brent Tops. But the third reason is this is what we're doing in Gospel Doctrine right now. So the last few weeks we've been talking about Paul and his missionary journeys. So today we're going to look at those places. In addition to some pictures, I have some video clips. So every once in a while I'm going to take a breath and drink a glass of water and talk to you on site. So let's just review a little bit about what we know about the Apostle Paul. Well, as I mentioned at the outset, you get some sense towards the end of Acts how difficult all these journeys of Paul had been. When Paul is put on a boat, that's because he appeals to the emperor, he's a Roman citizen, he had a right to appeal his trial. And he actually sails to Malta where they're shipwrecked. He gets bitten by a poisonous snake, but survives miraculously. He heals the governor's father. He just continues to do his good stuff. And then he's taken up to Rome, where we're told at the end of Acts he is imprisoned for 2 years. And then the narrative ends. We actually don't have a scriptural account about the end of Paul. The assumption is, well, he goes to Rome, he must see the emperor's Nero, he's a jerk, that must be when Paul dies. We actually don't know that. We don't know what happens at the end of Acts. I suspect, this is what I teach at BYU, that the reason we end in Rome, not with the death of Paul, but just with his going to Rome and preaching while he's in prison, is because the book of Acts is not about Paul. It's not about Peter. We call it the Acts of the Apostles. It's really some of the Acts of some of the Apostles. The main character of the book of Acts is actually the Holy Ghost. Descends upon the church in Acts 2. It guides Peter. It guides Paul. And Jesus actually said before the Holy Ghost came, this is in Acts 1 before Jesus' ascension, he says, you're going to preach the gospel first in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, then the ends of the earth. So we start with Peter in Jerusalem. We end with Paul in Rome. And so what you see is the gradual expansion of the gospel, not just geographically, but ethnically. Jews, then Samaritans, then Gentiles. And because Rome is the capital of the known world, so to speak, that represents taking the gospel to the ends of the earth.